my friends, and welcome to Buddha and the Coach, a vlog powered by Soul Performance Academy, and I am your host, Dan Mickle. The Buddha and the Coach is a weekly vlog focused on looking at the teachings of Buddha in a coach light. The Buddha and the Coach is proud to be sponsored by ICN Athletics. It's called Normal Athletics Makes the Extraordinary Ordinary through adaptive beach volleyball. Everyone should have the opportunity to enjoy and excel at this sport, and ICN Athletics offers the programs and education to make it normal for the adaptive athlete to play on any court. Help them make beach volleyball court a place for everybody. For more information and to make a donation to the 501c3, please visit icnathletics.com. Thank you, and they'll see you in the sand. And thank you again to Dave and John and everyone at It's Called Normal Athletics, doing great stuff with adaptive athletes out there on the beach volleyball course. And welcome back, everyone. I am glad you are tuned in for this week's lesson. Lesson number 11 is better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. I love this message. And one of the reasons I love it is how I'm going to look at it as a little bit different than I think a typical Buddhist reading would be, in the world scope. When we're looking at it from the coaching standpoint, I think a lot of times as coaches, and trust me, it happens to me a lot. I'm not pointing fingers here. I'm pointing fingers inward because it happens. Sometimes we just like to talk to hear ourselves talk. And we feel like we just need to have that constant noise in our players' ears. We always have to have that constant feedback, even if we're really not saying anything. And I think sometimes it's doing a little bit more damage than it's doing good. And I think it kind of waters down our messaging and how we coach. And I think what we really need to look at is how we can be more precise with our feedback and our instruction to get what we want, so that we don't get toned out, and get the blah, 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 blah from our players because they're just tired of hearing our voice. I really started to think about this over the last couple of weeks, just kind of looking at how I'm coaching, what I'm saying. Am I saying things with purpose, or am I uncomfortable with the silence? Or do I get too uncomfortable watching my players struggle, so I want to jump in there quick and just give them something? Let them know I'm paying attention. The problem is sometimes that just gets tuned out and it actually causes more harm. It's just more chatter, more frustration, more things being put in their head that they really don't need or want. And we've seen it, right? A lot of times we try to come off saying, well, it's motivation and we're trying to keep them focused. But really what we're doing is just adding more stuff into their limited bandwidth already. So my thought is, for this week, I'm challenging all the coaches out there that are in season, and if you're making notes and maybe doing this later in another season, challenge yourself to be very pointed and deliberate with what you're saying and when you're saying it. And are you actually saying something to get better or to give instruction, or are you just doing it because there was silence and it was a little uncomfortable and you felt like you needed to fill the air with some sort of noise? And that's the challenge. The challenge is just making sure that every time we have an interaction with our athletes, our performers, our students, our workers, however, or whatever context and setting that you're putting this on, making sure that we're saying something to actually say something and not just to actually have noise happening. I really enjoy filming our practices. We started doing it last year, and now it's automatic. It's just like setting the court up and getting things ready to go. We clip the camera on. And a lot of times, of course, I'll go back and look at how we did or how my athletes are performing. But what I'm starting to look at more is actually how am I coaching? I think I'm using our video more for my self-feedback than anything else right this moment. Did I set this up correctly? Did I explain it correctly? Is there a reason for me to even be talking at this point? Or can I just end it and say, hey, let's try it again and go? Or do I need to jump in and give that feedback? Am I giving them paralysis by overanalyzing everything? Paralysis by analysis and breaking down every little thing every time instead of just letting them go and watching the flow and watching it happen and then breaking in when I need to. And I found that there were a lot of times that I was just saying something just so my voice was heard. there was really no value in what I was saying. It may have been right and it may have been correcting something, but I don't think it was needed at that point. If you add in the other aspect of how we coach and that we have coaching staffs, is that happening then? Are we getting in the timeouts and just having blah, 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 blah for 60 seconds, 75 seconds, whatever your timeout is, and it's just overloading with everything? Are those the hollow words that we're putting in there? We're just filling that time. It took a while for me to get really comfortable with timeouts being silent. Sometimes you don't need to say anything. Sometimes the team just needs to say it to themselves. And I think too many times we get in there that we have to have this long speech or this long talk. So that's another aspect that this lesson kind of brings to me is, are we over coaching, over talking in timeouts, in between sets, for volleyball, or in between matches or games for other things? Are we just trying to fill that time to almost make it seem like, well, this is my worth as a coach. If I'm not saying anything, then I'm not coaching, then they're not going to value me. Why am I even here? And I think sometimes we just have to get out of our own way when we do that. And we just have to make sure that we're using the time wisely. And sometimes the best way to use that time is just to shut up, right? Sometimes it's just to be quiet, let them gather their thoughts, let them refocus, and then maybe throw in a word or two, but maybe we're just doing a little bit too much over coaching. And it could be because we hate seeing them struggle. It could be that we're trying to prove our worth of why we're here. It could be a lot of things, but the results are always the same, that we're just flooding these players or these workers or these performers with information, and it's just bogging them down more. All right. So again, lesson 11 from the Buddha this week is, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. So my challenge to you as coaches, managers, bosses, instructors, conductors, whatever field that you're in, try to be a little bit more pointed, a little bit more select with what and when you give feedback or instruction, and maybe back it off a little bit if you feel like you're giving too much. If you want to get really crazy, ask the team that you're leading what they want. Am I giving you too much feedback? Am I giving you too much information? Am I not giving you enough? I think we're so worried about not giving enough information that we actually go turn the dial the other way, end up going where we're giving too much. So that's my advice this week. Again, I would love to have this conversation. Put it in the comments in YouTube, on Facebook, everywhere you see it. Let's have this discussion. Like, share, subscribe, spread the word. Let's make this community bigger so we can have larger discussions and bring in opinions from different sports and different regions and different areas. Let's just grow it, and let's be there for each other as coaches, as leaders, as instructors and directors and educators. We need to grow our community and learn some best practices and bounce ideas, and it only happens with discussion. So again, thank you for tuning in to Buddha and the Coach for lesson 11. Like, share, retweet. Peace, love, much happiness, don't suck, and I will see you all next week.